Start recording?
Yeah.
Great, great.
Hare Krishna. So this is so the Bhagavad Gita is in 3 sections. It's first 6 chapters, second 6 chapters, last 6 chapters. So first 6 chapters, starting with chapter 1, is called Sambandha Jnana. Sambandha is the nature of relationship with the soul and the Supreme, and the nature of the environment, and the nature of our position as souls within this material system. So it describes the science of reincarnation, the movement of karma, all these different points within the system. And then the second stage, the next 6 chapters, chapter 6 to chapter 12, is abhidaya, which is the process, the method to attain development in bhakti. Then the last 6 chapters is moving toward the conclusion or the essence of all yoga system, ultimately culminating in a relationship with love, the divine Radha Krishna, and also how to attain that practically within any world, the modern world, the ancient world, the future world. So absolute truth is always applicable absolutely anywhere, anytime, any place, under any circumstance, despite our conditioning, karma, lessons, trials that we're moving through as wandering souls through the universe. Om Agyanatamarandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshunmalatam Jena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Gavavastasapuragam Guru Ganarashishya Sambhushitam Chancha Chancha Samashtavena Nipunam Shirupapatanugam Govinda Pidam Urbalam Bharatanam Bhaktan Vitam Shandaram Vande Vishvakaram Chitavya Bhagavat Pranohi Pichapadam Devam Divitunam Suchandavananam Balakachalanchitam Sandrananda Param Sarakavanam Balakipatam Bodhim Shri Shidantaninam Subhakti Lashitam Sarasvatanam Varam Vandetam Shubaram Marekasananam Yashishvaram Sridaram Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Swami Shri Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada Te Namaha Guruvagnyam Shirashadrichi Shakti Vaishasvarupane Hare Krishna Te Mantrana Praschicha Prachatarane Visvachari Paviyar Devakarandamurtaye Shri Bhagavatamatuya Gita Gana Pradayane Gaura Shirupa Shidanta Saraswarina Shevane Radha Krishna Paramboja Brangaya Guruve Namaha Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sundavahe Vacha Patitanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Yay. So exciting. Dale, Hari Bolo, Spirit Solo. Yay. Hare Krishna.
Hey everyone. Hare Krishna.
How was your day?
It was good, yeah. I've had work and then had a little window, and then I've gone to check up at the dentist, and sort of realigned me again. So not too far from getting the braces off, which is exciting.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's exciting.
Probably a month or so away, I reckon. So
wow.
Yeah.
How long have they been on, Dale?
Only since January.
Wow, January, February, March.
Yeah.
That's a because it's you got metal in your mouth. You'll be wanting to get them out. It's like,
yeah. Kind of over food getting stuck in them.
Oh yeah. It's a bit of an ordeal, but it's good at the end because it helps the whole straightening. And
yeah.
Awesome.
Anam, is your puppy with you? Because Dale didn't meet your puppy the other day. Did you, Dale?
No, I didn't. No.
I have to look for her. She's a little rescue. She's so adorable. Oh, sorry to delay the reading.
No. That little soul is running around inside the environment of the bhakti field. Yay! Fluffy dog.
Hazel Chudo Krishna.
Name Achyuta.
Hazel.
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 And she's Hazel Churo Krishna the first.
Nice.
Oh my gosh. That's so sweet.
Just dramatized a little bit. It's my sister's idea.
It's gorgeous.
It's nice you rescued him or her.
This is her.
Yes, her. Rescued her, yeah, because we have to look after all the souls as best we can, you know. Traversing
Yeah.
through the realm.
Very precious. So chapter 1, who would like to start out? We're on page 60 if everyone's got the PDF or just wants to listen. I'm happy to start us off. Oh, Anam, well, you're unmuted. Did you want to read?
Yeah, I don't mind. I
Yeah.
can read in Hindi better, honestly. It's easier to pronounce it when it's written in Hindi.
Great. Would you like to go ahead then? That'd be awesome.
Sure, let us commence.
Thank you.
Observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Dhritarashtra Uvach, Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre, Samveta Yuyuksavaha, Mamakaha Pandavakšteva, Kim Kurvit Sanjyaha. Here, Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjay, after assembling in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, what did my sons and sons of Pandu do, being desirous to fight? Bhagavad Gita is the widely read theistic science summarized in the Gita Mahatmya, glorification of the Gita. There is still that one should read Bhagavad Gita very scrutinizingly with the help of a person who is a devotee of Sri Krishna and try to understand it without personally motivated interpretations. The example of clear understanding is there in the Bhagavad Gita itself, in the way the teaching is understood by Arjuna, who heard the Gita directly from the Lord. If someone is fortunate enough to understand Bhagavad Gita in that line of disciplic succession without motivated interpretation, then he surpasses all studies of Vedic wisdom and all scriptures of the world. One will find in the Bhagavad Gita all that is contained in other scriptures, but the reader will also find things which are not to be found elsewhere. This is the specific standard of the Gita. It is the perfect theistic science because it is directly spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. The topics discussed by Dhritarashtra and Sanjay, as described in the Mahabharata, from the basic principle for this great philosophy. It is understood that this philosophy evolved on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, which is a sacred place of pilgrimage from the immemorial time of the Vedic age. It was spoken by the Lord when he was present personally on this planet for the guidance of mankind. The word Dharmakshetra, a place where religious rituals are performed, is significant because on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead was present on the side of Arjuna. Dhritarashtra, the father of the Kurus, was highly doubtful about the possibility of his son's ultimate victory. In his doubt, he inquired from his secretary Sanjay, "What did my sons and the sons of Pandu do?" He was confident that both his sons and the sons of his younger brother Pandu were assembled in that field of Kurukshetra for a determined engagement of the war. Still, his inquiry is significant. He did not want a compromise between the cousins and brothers. He wanted to be sure of the fate of his sons on the battlefield. Because the battle was arranged to be fought at Kurukshetra, which is mentioned elsewhere in the Vedas as a place of worship, even for the denizens of heaven, Dhritarashtra became very fearful about the influence of the holy place on the outcome of the battle. He knew very well that this would influence Arjuna and the sons of Pandu favorably, because by nature they were all virtuous. Sanjay was a student of Vyasa, and therefore by the mercy of Vyasa, Sanjay was able to envision the battlefield of Kurukshetra even while he was in the room of Dhritarashtra. And so Dhritarashtra asked him about the situation on the battlefield. Both the Pandavas and the sons of Dhritarashtra belong to the same family, but Dhritarashtra's mind is disclosed herein. He deliberately claimed only his sons as Kurus, and he separated the sons of Pandu from the family heritage. One can thus understand the specific position of Dhritarashtra in his relationship with his nephews, the sons of Pandu. As in the paddy field, the unnecessary plants are taken out, so it is expected from the very beginning of these topics that in the religious field of Kurukshetra, where the father of religion, Sri Krishna, was present, the unwanted plants like Dhritarashtra's son Duryodhana and others would be wiped out, and the thoroughly religious persons headed by Yudhishthira would be established by the Lord. This is the significance of the words Dharmakshetra and Kurukshetra, apart from their historical and Vedic importance.
So just a quick reflection. There is reference there in Prabhupada's purport that even the supreme entity, who of course is all love, when the soul chooses heavy contraction and chooses the way of the demon and starts to oppress and create a very unfavorable and contracted and heavy environment amongst other humans, even the Supreme is happy to see those unwanted plants removed, which means actually you know how sometimes, when people see that there's a group of, very heavy, like, militant humans in some type of ideology that are just indiscriminately killing and massacring. It's, to say something like, oh, these people need to be taken out of the gene pool or moved on to the next dimension. Sometimes that's a rhetoric that comes as a result that if they're removed or something happens to them, the world won't sigh, It's like, so even the Supreme has that discrimination. So like unwanted plants, the Kauravas. So this is a war that the Pandavas didn't want to fight. The good guys didn't want to fight. They wanted the Kauravas to stop being demonic and suppressing and being of heavy contraction, but they didn't give any choice. So then the Supreme Entity actually arranged for millions upon millions of those in contracted demonic consciousness to be basically cleansed off the earth. So that's, of course, a divine war. And so this is the setting of the scene. So the observing of the armies, the two armies come together. It's one of the biggest battles ever on earth, actually, fought 5,000 years ago. And symbolically, this is the war between the higher and the lower, even within our own self. This type of battle is going on. So, virtue and exploitation, love, fear. So it's not that the soul is always choosing the upper. Sometimes the soul is choosing the lower. And so the karmic worlds are existing to capture those who are in heavy contraction. That's why in a society we have jails and we have places where very heavily out of control humans that want to hurt and cause a ruckus. There has to be some law and order to check, so the rest of the citizens can live in relative harmony. So anyway, so that discretion even the Supreme has. So for man to have that discretion and woman to demarcate between, those who are wanting a happy civilized society and those who want to cause a ruckus, we discriminate as humans. So the Supreme also. So it's there in us because it's there in the higher. So the material matrix is for the naughty ones who want to create a ruckus. But within that, there's maximum security, prison in the lower realm, medium security, which is the middle, and minimum. In the higher planetary systems, they don't have war and chaos like we have here. but there's still subtle false construct. But the Middle Earth, which we are in the middle of that battle, this is where, you know, there is good, but you can also see, if you turn on the telly, you can see the opposite of civility and love. You can see fear.
So Maharaj, are you referring to this all existing on our planet in different realms and planes, or is this like separate planets?
So yeah, it's actually heaven and hell are going on here also in different states of consciousness. So some people are living in a type of paradise and harmony and good behavior, and other people right now on the planet are in the middle of very heavy contracted transaction and reality. But the universe is also divided into lower planets, middle planets, upper planetary systems. So the middle planetary system is a mix of both higher and lower in the same mix. So you'll see there are many innocent people and they want a good, happy life and harmony. And there are those who are hell-bent on all sorts of nefarious behaviors on the planet. Power-mongering, you know, it's like Ozzy Osbourne, the war pigs. Those types of beings exist on this planet. They feed on, you know, power, war, the war machine. It's true, for profit. Many things. Sometimes justified, sometimes necessary, sometimes not necessary, sometimes just for profit. So every case with war has to be looked at in toto. But there are those in very contracted consciousness on the planet, unfortunately. But it's a choice. But the thing is, the mirror of karma is there to reflect back. So, but at the same time, there are those who want to invoke love and harmony and nobility and civility and the higher. So it's a combination of both. And so we're at the crossroads. What will you choose? The fact that we're all here in this space means we're choosing sort of onward and upward. We're attracted to that, which is great. And actually, any of our own mixing with the contracted states previously, that will be cleansed by the purification of bhakti. That's another great thing. When you come into the field or practice of bhakti, what contracted aspects have carried you so far will begin to be washed and cleansed. It's true, which is amazing, you know. Hopeful.
Maharaj, I'm sure it's going to become a lot more clearer, but is this basically two brothers like fighting one another? Is that like it seems like
two bloodlines?
Two bloodlines. Okay.
The Kauravas and the Pandavas. Two bloodlines, but they've some of the bloodline of the Pandavas are actually fighting on the other side. So it's a division of many kings. Kings and bloodline. So it'll go into more detail of actually many names are going to come up. So the first chapter is a little intensive because there's lots of reference to many of the lineages and names. Once we get into chapter 2, it's going to get into the philosophy, reincarnation, the soul. So that the first is setting the scene of observing the armies. So it'll go into some of that detail of those personalities.
May I just say something? I was a bit confused about this whole thing. So I had asked someone, so like the difference between the Upanishads and the Mahabharata, Ramayana, the Gita and stuff. So then they made it very clear to me. So the Mahabharata was basically an epic story that apparently happened in India. This battle that they're talking about at Kurukshetra was just a tiny chapter or say maybe one season of Mahabharata.
Yes, that's correct.
You know, so that the whole story continues. And while this battle happened, within that battle, Krishna had come down and given this speech to Arjuna, who was having a little bit of anxiety before going into war, saying, how can I fight my own people?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So that was like a subsection of the entire thing. So now we're at that of the Mahabharata, we're at this point of the Bhagavad Gita, where we're reading about this battle and how it actually applies to most things in life, not just a war, not just
exactly.
anything negative. It literally applies to every situation that we go through in life.
Yes. Yeah, you'll see here it mentions the topics discussed are one part of the Mahabharata, the great Mahabharata, one aspect. So the Bhagavad Gita as it is, actually what Krishna is speaking to Arjuna, many try to interpret some type of symbology to that, but it actually, as it is, it really is that Krishna is the supreme entity instructing Arjuna in the science of yoga, self-realization, and many other topics which we'll move through. We'll move through many, many topics in relationship to transcendental science. Bhagavad Gita as it is considered the handbook for the human form of life. If you can get a sort of a footing in the understanding of Bhagavad Gita, your foundation for spiritual life is very good, very clear, and in regard to what we're in the middle of as entities wandering through the Brahmanda. So many of the other aspects that we discuss in the classes, these points will come up at different points through the chapters. But this is a very comprehensive scientific revelation of all aspects of the yoga system, karma, reincarnation, time-space continuum, 3 modes of nature, many aspects of Vedic science. And Krishna is speaking this to Arjuna in the Sanskrit language. Famous. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, how exciting. Anam, would you like to continue into text 2? If you're happy to.
Of course. If anyone would like to take over, please let me know. I just feel like I had just studied this, so I'm all game to do it. I'm like, yes.
That makes it perfect.
Okay. Oh, also, a lot of the names are repeated. So sometimes you will hear Sri Krishna or Arjun being referred to as somebody else. So sometimes that gets confusing also. That's why I think that's what you meant by all those names coming in.
Yes.
Sometimes it's just the same people. Like Arjuna is also called Dhananjay, and Sri Krishna is also addressed in many other ways. So we'll find out.
So just Anam's, although there is a name coming up. This word Drita Rashtra. So Drita Rashtra, not Drita Shastra, no S.
Oh, Dhritarashtra.
Yes, Dhritarashtra. So please forgive my adjustment.
Oh, yes.
Only because when I hear the name, I because my nature is to try to correct, but it's easy because Shastra and Rashtra, but Drita Rashtra. Okay, Hare Krishna.
Okay. Sanjay Uvacha Drishtava tu Pandavanikam Vyudham Duryodhanas tada Acharyam Upasangyama Raja Vachanam Abravit. So here Sanjay says, O king, after looking over the army gathered by the sons of Pandu, King Duryodhana went to his teacher and began to speak the following words. Dhritarashtra was blind from birth. Unfortunately, he was also bereft of spiritual vision. He knew very well that his sons were equally blind in the matter of religion, and he was sure that they could never reach an understanding with the Pandavas, who were all pious since birth. Still, he was doubtful about the influence of the place of pilgrimage, and Sanjay could understand his motive in asking about the situation on the battlefield. He wanted, therefore, to encourage the despondent king, and thus he warned him. He warned him that his sons were not going to make any sort of compromise under the influence of the holy place. Sanjay, therefore, informed the king that his son Duryodhana, after seeing the military force of the Pandavas, at once went to the commander-in-chief, Dronacharya, to inform him of the real position. Although Duryodhana is mentioned as the king, he still had to go to the commander on account of the seriousness of the situation. He was therefore quite fit to be a politician. But Duryodhana's diplomatic veneer could not disguise the fear he felt when he saw the military arrangement of the Pandavas.
Yes, so considered millions and millions of warriors, millions. It's a huge battle that took place. So Dronacharya and Duryodhana, it is true, the Mahabharata this is one part of the Mahabharata, and many people study the Mahabharata, but in essence, it's considered the essence of the Mahabharata is this discussion between Krishna and Arjuna, because in that conversation, it's revealed how to become free, how to become perfect, enlightened, and ultimately free of karma, and to be established in a relationship with the source, divine source. Hare Krishna.
The third text. So this continues. So King Duryodhana went to his teacher and began to speak the following words. This was said by Duryodhana. Pashyatam Pandu Putranam Acharya Mahatim Chamum Vyudham Drupada Putrena Tava Shishyena Dhimata. O my teacher, behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupada. Duryodhana, a great diplomat, wanted to point out the defects of Dronacharya, the great Brahman, commander-in-chief. Dronacharya had some political quarrel with King Drupada, the father of Draupadi, who was Arjuna's wife. As a result of this quarrel, Drupada performed a great sacrifice by which he received the benediction of having a son who would be able to kill Dronacharya. Dronacharya knew this perfectly well, and yet as a liberal Brahmana, he did not hesitate to impart all his military secrets when the son of Drupada, Drishtadyumna, was entrusted to him for military education. Now, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Drishtadyumna took the side of the Pandavas, and it was he who arranged for their military phalanx, after having learnt the art from Dronacharya. Duryodhana pointed out this mistake of Dronacharya's so that he might be alert and uncompromising in the fighting. By this, he wanted to point out also that he should not be similarly lenient in battle against the Pandavas, who were also Dronacharya's affectionate students. Arjuna especially was his most affectionate and brilliant student. Duryodhana also warned that such leniency in the fight would lead to defeat. This is all strategy, basically.
This first chapter, when Prabhupada would describe this, his disciples were, because there's a lot of names in the build-up, but he said it's the preparation. Although the personalities are there, what becomes essential is not so much the historiography of the personalities, but it's the essence evolves in when Krishna starts speaking to Arjuna. But the other personalities that are there are benefited because as you go through the Gita, you'll see that it's the Pandavas that conquer. And they conquer the Kauravas because they have Krishna on their side. So if this gets a little heady, because to remember all these persons and their relationships and the dynamics, it will take time. But just for the reference of setting the scene, it's there.
So we can, if you guys would like to get a little more, to get to know the people and the names, we can go over it a little bit also.
That sounds
He
great.
mentioned who is who, so that you can just visualize the relationships between the people when somebody is speaking about something. So Dronacharya was just a consultant, basically a military consultant of the king Duryodhana. And they mention about the two fathers of the battling families were Pandu, who was the father of the Pandavas, and there was Dhritarashtra, who was the father of the Kauravas, which they haven't mentioned as the Kauravas here, but Arjun was in the Kauravas. He was a part of them. And they were fighting against the Pandavas, who through their life, they had always been spiritual, and that's why they worried that they're like, oh, look, they already have God on their side, so let's be as tactical as possible right now, is what Dronacharya's advice is to them. So then, sorry, go ahead.
Oh,
But
that's
Arjuna was on the Kauravas' side and then switched to the Pandavas, or how did that?
No, he's related with the Kauravas, but he fought on the side of the Pandavas, of course. So Draupadi, the Kauravas' uncles and cousins decided to fight on the other side for whatever reason. I mean, see, that to get a full understanding of this first chapter, you actually have to then study the Mahabharata. That's true, to get a full handle, because there's a whole series of events that happen before the battle. So some devotees do choose to study the Mahabharata, which you can study the Mahabharata. And then when you do enter the Gita, or especially the first chapter, it becomes more clear the relationship of the personalities. But Bhagavad Gita, in essence, is that conversation between specifically just Arjuna and Krishna. And then that's when the Supreme Being relates the great truth. And it is, Gurudev did sort of encourage that it is good to have some background understanding. So I think in India, generally everyone is quite familiar with Mahabharata because it's they have many movies, and there was a famous series that was made in the 1990s, and practically the whole of India stopped to watch the Mahabharata on television. It was done in Bollywood, I believe, by a famous, do you know the producer? There was a famous producer that made the Mahabharata series in Hindi. And somebody's actually translated it to English, believe it or not. So it is there. So for any of us, it may be even on YouTube, but the Mahabharata story is the lead up to this war, the fratricidal war between Kaurava and Pandava.
Yes, and so Miss said that Arjuna was one of the Pandavas, not the Kauravas. He was just related to the Kauravas. He was one of the spiritual guys.
Yeah, he was related as cousins.
Yeah.
So there were many kings. Just a quick overview is that Krishna's army actually fought for the Kauravas, and the Pandavas decided to have Krishna alone. Krishna decided, I won't fight, but you can have all of my army. One side can have my army, and one side can have me. And the Kauravas said, we'll take your army, Krishna. And the Pandavas said, or Arjuna said, I want you, Krishna. And Krishna became the chariot driver of Arjuna. But see, wherever Krishna is, all victory, Jai Pataka, and the Hanuman flag was on the chariot that Krishna chariot drove for Arjuna as the great warrior. But to get, like Anam says, to get a clearer picture of the understanding of this first chapter, the Mahabharata, if you can read or secure a copy, it will become more clear, definitely. But Bhagavad Gita in essence is, of course, the philosophy of the Supreme giving enlightenment to Arjuna.
And is this the final battle as well out of the Mahabharata? Mahabharata, or is there
No,
more
there's
after?
numbers of different battles that go on the Mahabharata between Krishna and Jambavan and different kings and Rukmini, Rukmini and Satyabhama and the life in Dwarka. There's different battles, but the epic battle, the main setting for the biggest battle that Krishna was involved with was this battle between the Kaurava and the Pandava. But there are smaller battles that took place, it's true. So you have to read Mahabharata to get that understanding.
I think Jenna just sent a link to the chat with the YouTube.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the one you guys are talking about, but it looks well done. It's 5 hours long.
There are some versions of the Mahabharata that are more close and historically accurate than others. Sometimes it's true that some of the stories have been Hollywooded up. So there are more authentic presentations of the Mahabharata. I can try to track it down because this came up with Srila Govinda Maharaj, and there is a version of the Mahabharata. I believe ISKCON does a version, and that's quite accurate. The Mahabharata, it's quite a big book. It's quite voluminous, but it definitely helps, this first chapter. In the second chapter, now you just go straight into the philosophy. You won't need reference because it's just Krishna and Arjuna speaking. But so for those who are interested to really, pre Bhagavad Gita, you can, and there are many amazing stories in the Mahabharata. They're similar to the Ramayana, and actually there are some Hollywood producers that are interested to look at reproducing perhaps the Mahabharata and even Ramayana, which is filled with many battles, stories with demons, and many things. Ravan, Lord Ramachandra killing Ravan, and Kumbhakarna, and many things. Hare Krishna.
Well, I'd be happy to take a couple of pages. If that works. So, was it text 3 we were up to? No. Sorry, text 4.
We finished the third, and now we're at the fourth one.
Okay, cool. Text 4. Atra suram maheshvasa bimaruj. Oh, I'm so sorry. I think it'll be better if you read it, Maharaj.
Atra shurha maheshvasha bimarjuna shamayuti yuyudano viratascha drupadascha maharataha.
Thank you. Translation. Here in this army, there are many heroic bowmen, equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna. There are also great fighters like Yuyudhana and Virata and Drupada. Purport. Even though Drishtadyumna was not a very important obstacle in the face of Dronacharya's very great power in the military art, there were many others who were the cause of fear. They are mentioned by Duryodhana as great stumbling blocks on the path of victory because each and every one of them was as formidable as Bhima and Arjuna. He knew the strength of Bhima and Arjuna, and thus he compared the others with them.
So the Mahabharata will explain the personalities, Bhima and Bhishmadev, and their strength and what they used to eat every day. Like Bhima would eat kilograms, 10 kilograms of banana and 40 liters of milk. Buckets. Like he was 12 foot high, like as wide as his chest was. I think the Mahabharata will go into the measurement of his chest was huge. He was massive, huge warriors, so it's very interesting. But anyway, so Prabhupada's touching on some of these points, but Mahabharata will express more. What I'll do after we finish, remind me to, before we finish, to try to, I'll put the link of the Mahabharata that ISKCON does, so everyone can have a look and read through, because it's very interesting. It's amazing, the pre-Bhagavad Gita.
Okay, cool.
Hare Krishna, Rohit. Dandavat. Dandavat.
Sorry, I'm finding the Sanskrit like looks really
Okay.
Dandavat pranam.
Dandavat.
okay.
Okay, text 5. Drishyaketus chitik tanaha kasira jascha viryavan purajit kuntipo jascha saivyascha narapongavaha. Translation.
Thank you. Translation, there are also great, heroic, powerful fighters like Drashtaketu, Chekitana, Kasiraja, Purujit, Kuntiboja, and Saibya.
Yudhamanyuscha vikranta uttamojascha viryavan subhadro draupadejascha sarva eva maharataha.
Translation, there are the mighty Yudhamanyu, the very powerful Uttamauja, the son of Subhadra, and the sons of Draupadi. All these warriors are great chariot fighters.
So when you read through the Mahabharata, it will break down all the natures and activities of these individual personalities. It's true.
Mm-hmm.
And just one note is Yudamanyu. Srila Govinda Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada had a famous disciple called Yudamanyu Prabhu, who's named after the original Yudamanyu. And he came to Srila Govinda Maharaj and spent many years as his student. Anyway, he was preaching the Bhagavad Gita in China, which is illegal. And Yudamanyu, he was given that name as a warrior because China, if they catch you preaching Bhagavad Gita, they can put you in jail, you know. Wow. So interesting, that name, Yudamanyu. So sometimes Prabhupada would give the name of these great warriors to his disciples because they were strong preachers in, you know, Russia, China, countries that were quite anti-theism. Text 7. Ashmakam tu vishishtaye tanniboda dvijotama nayaka mama sanyasya samyartam tan bravimite.
Translation, O best of the Brahmanas, for your information, let me tell you about the captains who are especially qualified to lead my military force.
Text 8. Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha Kripascha Sammatinjayaha Asvatarma Vikarnascha Sommadatis Tataivacha.
Translation, there are personalities like yourself, Bhisma, Karna, Kripa, Ashvatthama, Vikarna, and the son of Samadatta called Burishrava, who are always victorious in battle. Purport. Duryodhana mentioned the exceptional heroes in the battle, all of whom are ever victorious. Vikarna is the brother of Duryodhana, Asvatthama is the son of Dronacharya, and Somadati or Burishrava is the son of the king of the Balikas. Karna is the half-brother of Arjuna, as he was born of Kunti before her marriage with King Pandu. Kripacharya married the twin sister of Dronacharya.
And were you taught the Mahabharata in school?
No. It was only when we were really young. It was like grandparents would tell us the stories and teachers would use it to like get us more involved, like, oh, and just like in the Mahabharata, how. So it was like an understood thing that we all just knew it. It's like an inborn wisdom that we grow up with.
Yeah, it's very deep, and of course, their lives, the Pandavas and the Kauravas, and the Mahabharata epic. It then, you know, Krishna appeared in the middle of this great, heavy time on the earth. Actually, great kings, and there was all sorts of conflict, and then Krishna came. Because Swami Maharaj Prabhupada, he was brought up in a strong Hindu family, so he grew up listening, and Srila Govinda Maharaj and Srila Sridhar Maharaj from Brahmin family. So in their childhood, like similar, like Anam was saying, they're brought up with Mahabharata stories, the Ramayana, and sometimes the pastimes of Krishna, Radha. So it's quite common in India, and especially in maybe modern India less, but it was there in the 18th, 19th century. Strong all the way through the centuries. These epics were told to the children, and everyone was aware to some degree. Text 9. Anyecha bhavaha shura mardarti chakta jivataha nana shastra praharanaha sarvi yudha isharadaha.
Thanks, Maharaj. The translation is, there are many other heroes who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake. All of them are well equipped with different kinds of weapons, and all are experienced in military science. The purport says, as far as the others are concerned, like Jayadratha, Kritavarma, Ksalya, etc., all are determined to lay down their lives for Duryodhana's sake. In other words, it is already concluded that all of them would die in the battle of Kurukshetra for joining the party of the sinful Duryodhana. Duryodhana was, of course, confident of his victory on account of the above-mentioned combined strength of his friends.
Text 10. Aparyaptam tad ashmakam balam bhishma birakshitam paryaptam tvidam etisham balam bhima birakshatim.
Our strength is immeasurable, and we are perfectly protected by Grandfather Bhisma, whereas the strength of the Pandavas, carefully protected by Bhima, is limited. Purport says, herein an estimation of comparative strength is made by Duryodhana. He thinks that the strength of his armed forces is immeasurable, being specifically protected by the most experienced general, Grandfather Bhishma. On the other hand, the forces of the Pandavas are limited, being protected by a less experienced general, Bhima, who is like a fig in the presence of Bhishma. Duryodhana was always envious of Bhima because he knew perfectly well that if he should die at all, he would only be killed by Bhima. But at the same time, he was confident of his victory on account of the presence of Bhishma, who was a far superior general. His conclusion that he would come out of the battle victorious was well ascertained.
So you can see the pride building. Because one side had the armies of Krishna, but the Pandavas had Krishna on their side. So who can, if you have Krishna on your side, you'll defeat everything, anybody, and any under any situation. Excuse me. This is text 11. Ayeneshu chasarveshu yakta bhagam avishtataha bhishmam eva birakshantu bhavantaha sarva evahi.
Now all of you must give full support to Grandfather Bhisma, standing at your respective strategic points in the phalanx of the army. I've never used that word before. Is that how you say phalanx?
Yeah, phalanx. Phalanx is it's an order. It's a particular movement of it's used. The Romans and the ancient Greeks had phalanxes of approach in the battlefield. Yeah. A particular shape and movement of the army coming.
Thank you. The purport. Duryodhana, after praising the prowess of Bhisma, further considered that others might think that they had been considered less important. So in his usual diplomatic way, he tried to adjust the situation in the above words. He emphasized that Bhisma Deva was undoubtedly the greatest hero, but he was an old man, so everyone must especially think of his protection from all sides. He might become engaged in the fight, and the enemy might take advantage of his full engagement on one side. Therefore, it was important that other heroes would not leave their strategic positions and allow the enemy to break the phalanx. Duryodhana clearly felt that the victory of the Kurus depended on the presence of Bhismadev. He was confident of the full support of Bhismadev and Dronacharya in the battle because he well knew that they did not even speak a word to Arjuna's wife, Draupadi, in her helpless condition, had appealed. Sorry, did I just skip something? He well knew that they did not even speak a word when Arjuna's wife, Draupadi, in her helpless condition, had appealed to them for justice while she was being forced to strip naked in the presence of all the great generals in the assembly. Although he knew that two generals had some sort of affection for the Pandavas, he hoped that all such affection would now be completely given up by them, as was customary during the gambling performances. It's a lot to process and keep up with.
Yeah. So this is, because there was a whole series of events that led up to the battlefield of Kurukshetra, a chess game, and then Draupadi was, you'll see in the pictures, when we went through the pictures, there was some reference to Draupadi. So Krishna supplied unlimited saris to protect Draupadi.
Right, I remember.
So those kings, they, dishonored, Draupadi. And so then, of course, there was mounting resentment. And then, of course, that was due to a chess game that was lost. So, there is, the necessity for Mahabharata can be there. Yeah. A good friend of mine who was a warrior type, his name's Aravinda Lochan. He joined the movement in the 70s. He liked to read the Mahabharata. Because it gives a lot of insight, especially about the great noble warriors of the past. But it does set the scene for all this, especially chapter 1. Srila Govinda Maharaj, he knew many stories from the Mahabharata, many. So I've never read the Mahabharata, so I should at some point maybe pick it up. And we can also have another study group to go through the Mahabharata. Yeah, it's all about warriors, though, great noble Aryan warrior and the life of their wives and the epic history of Bharatvarsh, India. Especially Krishna's Leela and Dwarka with Satyabhama, Rukmini, because Krishna was as king also. Okay, text 12. Tasya sanjayan hasham kuru vridhaha pitamaha shimhanadam vinadyochahai sankam da mal pratapavan.
Then Bhisma, the great valiant grandsire of the Kuru dynasty, the grandfather of the fighters, blew his conch shell very loudly, like the sound of a lion, giving Duryodhana joy. The grandsire of the Kuru dynasty could understand the inner meaning of the heart of his grandson Duryodhana, and out of his natural compassion for him, he tried to cheer him by blowing his conch shell very loudly, benefiting his position as a lion. Indirectly, by the symbolism of the conch shell, he informed his depressed grandson Duryodhana that he had no chance of victory in the battle, because the Supreme Lord Krishna was on the other side. But still, it was his duty to conduct the fight, and no pains would be spared in that connection.
So you see the subtleties now, even before the fact that the conch shell is giving an indication of some impending failure. Because what's coming in a few texts forward is the Pandavas blow their conch shells, and then that's a different sound. That's a stronger, more victorious. So even the sounds before the war gave indication. So when here in New Zealand, like when the Māori battalions would go to war, they would do the haka. And so that sound of the haka was to invoke fear into the enemy. So same in Aryan or Vedic culture, the great warriors would the battle drums, kettle drums, and then big conches would be blown. Text 13. Tatashankascha biryascha panabanaka gomukaha sahashai vabhyaya bahanyanta sasabdastu malo bhavat.
I think I'm going to take on from now. That's okay? Okay, so after that, the conch shells, bugles, trumpets, drums, and horns were all suddenly sounded, and the combined sound was tumultuous.
Text 14. Shall I continue the reading, the Sanskrit, or do you want to have a...
I'll have a go.
Yeah, definitely.
Tataha Shvetair Hayair Yukti Mahati Shandane Shlitau Madhavaha Pandavas Chaiva Divyao Sankau Pradadmyatuha. On the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna, stationed on a great chariot drawn by white horses, sounded their transcendental conch shells. In contrast with the conch shell blown by Bhismadeva, the conch shells in the hands of Krishna and Arjuna are described as transcendental. The sounding of the transcendental conch shells indicated that there was no hope of victory for the other side, because Krishna was on the side of the Pandavas. I'm going to highlight all that. Jayastu Pandu Putranam Yesham Pakshi Janardana. Victory is always with persons like the sons of Pandu, because Lord Krishna is associated with them. And whenever and wherever the Lord is present, the goddess of fortune is also there, because the goddess of fortune never lives alone without her husband. Therefore, victory and fortune were awaiting Arjuna, as indicated by the transcendental sound produced by the conch shell of Vishnu or Lord Krishna. Besides that, the chariot on which both the friends were seated was donated by Agni, the fire god, to Arjuna, and this indicated that this chariot was capable of conquering all sides wherever it was drawn over the three worlds.
Interesting. See, because the demigods were, of course, in favor of the Pandavas, because Draupadi, her sons, she had relations with the demigods to have her sons. And that will come up, Nakula, Sahadev, Arjuna. So they have connection, you see, with the higher. And so the Kauravas represented the demonic Asura. So two types of beings, Sura and Asura, the higher and the lower. And I think one time in a class we were discussing in the Kali Yuga, the demon and the Deva live in the same body. So we have to choose the Deva. And in the previous age, the demon and the angel are born in the same family, but different brother, sister. The age before, born on the same planet, but different continent. And in the Satya Yuga, born on different planet. So this is why the war within Kali Yuga. So by the chanting, by hearing Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata, all the devils in our consciousness coming out, getting washed out, our contracted nature, karmic, lower natures being cleansed. Even taking the name of these great warriors is pushing out contracted consciousness in us. If you take the name Sanjay and Arjuna and Sahadev and Bhishmadev and Bhima, they're all great warriors. You're being purified. And of course, what to speak of Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Yes. Excuse me.
Awesome. Text 15. Panchajanyam Hishikesho Devadatam Dananjayaha Poundram Dadmau Mahasankam Bhimakarma Virkodaraha. Panchajanyam, the conch shell, named Panchajanya. Oh, sorry, the translation. Then Lord Krishna blew his conch shell, called Panchajanya. Arjuna blew his, the Devadatta, and Bhima, the voracious eater and performer of Herculean tasks, blew his terrific conch shell called Poundram.
So just a quick reference there. Bhima, he many bananas, many calories a month. So the Mahabharata goes into the life of Bhima, and also later the story of Bhishmadev, how he departs. Yeah, so yeah, they were big, superhuman warrior, not like normal human today.
Purport. Lord Krishna is referred to as Hrishikesha.
Or Rishikesh.
Or Rishikesh.
Yeah,
Okay.
Rishikesh.
Rishikesh, okay.
Yeah, and there's Anam will know there's a town called Rishikesh, not far from Delhi, which is a favorite place for many people to go.
Rishikesh.
Yeah, Rishikesh.
Lord Krishna is referred to as Hrishikesh in this verse because he is the owner of all senses. The living entities are part and parcel of him, and therefore the senses of the living entities are also part and parcel of his senses. The impersonalists cannot account for the senses of the living entities, and therefore they are always anxious to describe all living entities as senseless or impersonal. The Lord, situated in the hearts of all living entities, directs their senses, but he directs in terms of the surrender of the living entity, and in the case of a pure devotee, he directly controls the senses. Here on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the Lord directly controls the transcendental senses of Arjuna, and thus his particular name of, what was it again?
Rishikesh.
Hrishikesh, particular name of Hrishikesh. The Lord has different names according to his different activities. For example, his name is Madhusudana because he killed the demon of the name Madhu. His name is Govinda because he gives pleasure to the cows and to the senses. His name is Vasudev because he appeared as the son of Vasudev. His name is Devaki Nandana because he accepted Devaki as his mother. His name is Yashoda Nandana because he awarded his childhood pastimes to Yashoda at Vrindavan. His name is Partha Sarati because he worked as a charioteer of his friend Arjuna. Similarly, his name is Hrishikesh because he gave direction to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Arjuna is referred to as Dhananjaya in this verse because he helped his elder brother in fetching wealth when it was required by the king to make expenditures for different sacrifices. Similarly, Bhima is known as Virkodara because he could eat as voraciously as he could perform Herculean tasks, such as killing the demon Hidimba. So, the particular types of conch shell blown by the different personalities on the side of the Pandavas, beginning with the lords, were all very encouraging to the fighting soldiers. On the other side, there were no such credits, nor the presence of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Director, nor that of the Goddess of Fortune. So, they were predestined to lose the battle, and that was the message announced by the sounds of the conch shells.
So Prabhupada would often reference these early slokas. He would quote them that for the world taking up bhakti, have no fear, There will, it's true, there may be some resistance by those in contracted consciousness. But as Arjuna was protected by Krishna, if you are on the path of bhakti, sometimes the critics and the blanket throwers may come, but fear not. Krishna will protect. Your desire to awaken in love of God, you will be protected. Your life will be auspicious. It will be blessed. Your karma will clear. All auspicious things will come. The Christians have a saying, first seek ye the kingdom of the higher, the Lord. All other things shall be bestowed upon you. So it is true. Wherever there is Krishna, all victory will follow. So you chanting Mahamantra, hearing the Bhagavad Gita, this is very auspicious. It's like, and a human form of life to have this chance is considered very rare. So Prabhupada would often reiterate this to the Westerners and to all the people that he was traveling with. And also inside India, Mumbai, he gave many lectures and he said, everyone should take full advantage of this opportunity to awaken God consciousness. Krishna will protect and give great blessing to any soul that follows the path of bhakti.
Okay. Text 16 to 18. Ananta Vijayam Raja Kuntiputro Yudhishthira Nakulaha Sahadevascha Sugosa Manipushpakau Kashyascha Parameshvashaha Sikhandi cha Maharataha Drishta Jumno Viratascha Satyakishcha Parajitaha Drupado Draupadeyascha Sarvashaha Prithivipate Saubhadrascha Mahabahuha Shankantadmuha Pritak. King Yudhishthira, the son of Kunti, blew his conch shell, the Ananta Vijaya, and Nakula and Sayadeva blew the Sugosha and Manipushpaka. That great archer, the king of Kashi, the great fighter Shikhandi, the Drishtadyumna, Virata, and the unconquerable Satyaki, Drupada, the sons of Draupadi, and the others, O king, such as the son of Subhadra, greatly armed, all blew their respective conch shells. Sanjay informed King Dhritarashtra very tactfully that his unwise policy of deceiving the sons of Pandu and endeavoring to enthrone his own sons on the seat of the kingdom was not very laudable. The signs already clearly indicated that the whole Kuru dynasty would be killed in that great battle. Beginning with the grandsire, Bhisma, down to the grandsons like Abhimanyu and others, including kings from many states of the world, all were present there and all were doomed. The whole catastrophe was due to King Dhritarashtra because he encouraged the policy followed by his sons.
So many personalities coming. So yeah, definitely. If you want more insight, definitely Mahabharata, you must read. And Diptanshu, is that Dandavat Hare Krishna? Is that the right way to pronounce your name? Just the audio is not.
Yeah, you're just on mute at the moment. If you want to click on the bottom left, the microphone icon, so we can hear you.
Haribo.
Haribo. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranams. So you're in Rishikesh.
Yeah, yes.
Dandavats. Beautiful. There we go. My favorite town or city of all time. I have an attraction. Many years ago, when I was a young man, an old Indian sannyasi from India, he said, in your previous life, I think you lived in Rishikesh. And of all of India, when I go to Rishikesh, I always feel some attraction there. You're very
Ramana
blessed.
Maharaj.
Yeah, very blessed.
Wow.
And Ganga Mata is flowing beside you. So nice to meet you. Hare Krishna. Jai. Excuse me. Yeah.
Okay. Shall I continue?
I think so. You're doing great.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Your pronunciation, even though it's slow, it's actually very close and correct to the way, the prophetic and everything. Yeah.
That's
good.
nice. Thank you. Okay, text 19. Shagosho dartarastranam hirdayani vyadarat nabascha prithivim chaiva tumulo pianunadayan. The blowing of these different conch shells became uproarious, and thus vibrating both in the sky and on the earth, it shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. Purport. When Bhishma and the others on the side of Duryodhana blew their respective conch shells, there was no heartbreaking on the part of the Pandavas. Such occurrences are not mentioned, but in this particular verse, it is mentioned that the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra were shattered by the sounds vibrated by the Pandavas' party. This is due to the Pandavas and their confidence in Lord Krishna. One who takes shelter of the Supreme Lord has nothing to fear, even in the midst of the greatest calamity. That's a good sentence.
Beautiful, isn't it? So just another reflection, the author of this Bhagavad Gita as it is, Srila Saraswati Thakur, he named Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Abhay Charan Prabhu, Abhay Charan Das, which is one who is fearless at the lotus feet of Vishnu, Krishna. So very interesting, that he does this translation, excuse me, of Bhagavad Gita from the purports of Saraswati Thakur. Also, Bhaktivinoda Thakur also did commentary. And so he takes a culmination of different purports. And he fearlessly takes Bhagavad Gita as it is to the West, fearlessly, and promotes and engages his own countrymen and women in the path of bhakti, and the entire world, Russia, China, everywhere. Bhagavad Gita is now translated into as many languages. And there is prediction that it will spread. The great essence of India's spiritual heritage, culture, and spiritual essence, it will spread, and it will save the world in its darkest hours, the Vedic culture, Vedic wisdom. And so his name was Abhay Charan, which is he who is at the feet of the fearless Vishnu, Krishna. So when we do pranam mantra to Swami Maharaj Prabhupada or any of the great masters, we go Jai Om Vishnu Pad, Paramahansa Parivraj Kacharya Bharya Astatar Satashishiman. So Om Vishnu Pad, he who has taken shelter at the feet of Vishnu, Krishna, Krishna Pad, Vishnu Pad. And then Paramahansa means like swan, like I think Anam, you were discussing about that, Paramahamsa. And the emblem of the bhakti field is the swan, the essence. This is bhakti. The path of bhakti is called the path of the Paramahamsa Dharma, the path of drawing the essence, seeing everything in relationship to service to the higher, to Krishna, to Guru Gauranga. So like swan. And a swan, if you put milk and water together, the swan takes the milk, leaves the water. This ability, Paramahamsa. Anyway, so Abhay Charan means fearless, one who's taken. So one who takes shelter of the Supreme Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Will be fearless, nothing to fear, even in the midst of the greatest calamity. So Hare Krishna. Jenna, we're coming up to 9:20. Should we move into reflection?
That's my job.
Oh.
Sorry.
No. We can read a few more, and then any reflections or maybe the last 10 minutes we can just reference everyone's feeling or understanding about it would be, I could try and track down the Mahabharata. There are more authentic translations or copies of Mahabharata. I know Srila Govinda Maharaj, he selected one author. I'm going to have to do my homework. But there are many versions of Mahabharata in Hindi, Bengali, and also English. So, yeah, we'll try and find a version of Mahabharata that is close to the acharyas and the line of Krishna consciousness. Both in English, Hindi. Are you Hindi speaking, don't you? Hindi? Yes. Okay. Because they do a Mahabharata in Hindi as well. I think ISKCON does a translation in Hindi, and which would be good.
I guess there's this Purjanya Das Maharaja's translation. It's in Hindi and English as well.
Is that the big book that you have there? Is that the Mahabharata?
This is Bhagavad Gita.
Oh, Bhagavad
Gita.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So we'll try and track one down, but I know that there are a series of, I think ISKCON is trying to sort of put together a series of movies encapsulating the main stories within the Mahabharata for all of the world to become familiar with. They're doing a similar thing like in Mayapur. The story I have here, the Gopakama, the understanding of the universe and its different structures. They're making a temple of Vedic planetarium. So in the same way, diorama about Mahabharata, the pastimes of Lord Ram, Lord Krishna. Because it's very deep and oceanic. But anyway, we'll try to track down some good versions of the Mahabharata. Soon, once we come into chapter 2 here, which is coming, you see it's going to go directly into philosophy, like all the aspects, reincarnation, yoga. And when I was a young man in my 20s, we would have to learn slokas. And that's something that we can also do as a group. I'm happy we can learn, we can have homework where we, like if you see here, I have slokas that I'm learning constantly. The sloka is from the Narada Pantaratra, Savopada Vinirmuktam, Tatpada Vinirmalam Hrishikena Hrishikesha Savinam Bhaktiruchate. And then translation. So when you learn these slokas and speak them, what's the essence of what's in the sloka can purify you and reveal to you many things. So it's encouraged by our masters to gradually learn these slokas from Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures. So yeah, it becomes, something very beautiful. Like this, when we did Reveal Truth last night, was it last night? No, then Tuesday night. That one verse of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the Dasmula Tattva, definitely that one we should learn, because Srila Govinda Maharaj said, if you learn this sloka, everything of Krishna consciousness and bhakti is found within that sound vibration. But anyway, that's something for the future. Learning sloka. It's very beautiful. You learn. And then when you lecture, like when you quote from the Bhagavad Gita, Tesham satatyuktanam vatitam patipurvakam tatam hi buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayantite. It's very authentic, Like as a sannyasi especially, we have to constantly be learning sloka and Vedanta. But all devotees can learn. Anyway, stage by stage.
It's been such a sweet gathering tonight.
Mm. We're getting the strength from the warriors in the Bhagavad, in the Mahabharata, to continue the great, you know.
Do you recommend, Maharaj, to watch the episodes at all, the Mahabharata episodes?
Yeah, if they're there, have you found
'Cause
some YouTube?
a lot of this has gone over my head, like, with the names and stuff.
Of course, yeah, definitely.
But,
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, like there are videos in English which will give a general timeline and different stories, but authentic explanation you'll probably need to read the Mahabharata. So we'll track down an author. But general understanding will come through the video.
There's this version by Purna Pragnya Das. I guess it's on database.
Okay, can you Tanchu, are you able to write that his name? Purna Pragna. Maybe I can hear. I know the name Purna Pragna. So let me in the chat. Purna. So P. Is this the correct spelling, Prabhu? Purna Pragna, Prabhu. So is this it? Is that correct? Purna Pragna.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, Purna Pragna, Prabhu. Okay, so then Google Purna Pragna. This may even also be in a PDF form. Now modern technology. So yeah. Is he a member of ISKCON?
Yes, Prabhu.
And disciple of Draupadi Maharaj?
Okay. He's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada.
Oh, Srila Prabhupada. Okay, then. Perfect. So he may have done that as an offering to Srila Prabhupada. What's happening is actually, as the years go on, many of these epics are being deeply looked at by disciples of Prabhupada and then turned into books as an offering. So Purna Pragna, Prabhu. And he's a direct disciple of Prabhupada, so he'll have done his homework to have found an authentic translation. Hare Krishna. I feel so blessed to be with you all here, and because my memories of going through Bhagavad Gita, I was a young man, 18, 19, sitting like freshly shaven in an ashram. And at that time I was traveling Australia, so I was in Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide, Canberra, Auckland. I'd be moving and I'd be learning this as a young man, you know, like sitting 7 o'clock in the morning, we would have Bhagavad Gita classes, and with there were many Westerners. Sunday feast. So it was something mystical happens as you go on hearing, and as you move through the chapters. It's a very subtle but mystical thing happens, because you are hearing the conversation between the Supreme Entity and Arjuna. It's very deep. Hare Krishna.
We're all very fortunate to, I mean, this is my first time reading through it. I think it's probably, at least for a few others, maybe the first time, but to have this format to be facilitated by you, Maharaj, I think is very special. And
it's my privilege. My privilege. It is true that in reading these Vedic literatures, you should be guided, because the context and also just reflections on the purports and in context with the mission, with Prabhupada himself, with his disciples. So he would lecture from Bhagavad Gita in those 12 years from 65 to 77. He would be reading from all the, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita as it is, Chaitanya Charitamrita. So one thing is, you can go online to YouTube and you can find hundreds of lectures where Prabhupada is reading from Bhagavad Gita and it'll say, reading from Bhagavad Gita, 1972, Boston, USA, chapter 4, text 13, and then text, like that. And then you can go to the Bhagavad Gita and then hear Prabhupada's lecture about that. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj also, Srila Govinda Maharaj. So there's so much we have material for further extension of study as well. Amazing, amazing. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jai Gurudev. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Maha Mantra, this divine form of worship, Radha Krishna will save us. And everything will be revealed through Maha Mantra, even all other Vedic knowledge. It's true. So here in Bhagavad Gita, but the Maha Mantra will also reveal many things. Nam, Rup, Gun, Lila. Yes. Nam, Rup, Lila. So very nice, Dip Tanchu. So how did you hear about our book club?
Actually, I got connected to Chintamani Mataji on Instagram.
Okay, nice. She's
Joined
moving in many worlds, that girl. Many worlds. Amazing. Very nice. Anyway, nice that you came, and always happy to meet you friends, you know. And Anam, our regular, Rohit, Francesco, Dale, Sudarshan. Always a privilege to be moving with you beautiful, light-loving souls, full of devotion on the path. Hare Krishna. All right, well, look, we've hit our 1.5 hour, and I'm going to do a late run to the supermarket, believe it or not. I have to get some milk, some almond milk and some things. But always a pleasure, and look forward to our next meeting.
So do we, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Jai. All right, offering my Dandavat Pranam, big hugs, lots of love.
Dandavat.
Till next time. Hare Krishna.
Krishna Dandavats, everyone. Love you all.
Jai.
Thanks, Maharaj.
Dandavat.
Jai
Bye.
Gurudev.